Welcome to the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5-Question Series. I'm Max Kakis, Defense Editor of Signal Magazine. Our guest today is David Marquet, a retired captain with the U.S. Navy. Captain Marquet is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, the Naval Postgraduate School, and Old Dominion University. He served in a variety of leadership positions within the Navy, including ComSubPac, Commander of Subsquadron 3, and the Deputy Director of the Navy's Deep Blue program. Also a graduate of the Navy's Nuclear Power School, he served on USS Sunfish, Will Rogers, and Hawkbill. And he's been commanding officer of the nuclear fast attack submarine USS Santa Fe. He's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and most recently published a book on his experiences in leadership aboard the Santa Fe, taking one of the worst performing nuclear subs in the fleet to one of the best in the Navy. His book is entitled Turn the Ship Around, How to Create Leadership at Every Level, published by Greenleaf Book Group Press. David, welcome to AFCEA. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Max, for having me on your show.
You've had a distinguished career as a naval officer, and you're among a select few who've commanded a nuclear-powered submarine. In your book, you talked about how you helped members of the crew of the Santa Fe move on to really impressive leadership positions of their own. Based on that, what would you say are the characteristics in an individual that mark that person as a potential leader?
Look, Max, I think anyone can be a potential leader. Sometimes when I talk with companies, one of the things that I get labeled as a person who creates empowering organizations and it helps people do empowering things. And they'll say, well, which of my people should I empower? Right. And the answer is, all of them. If you can pick ahead of time and choose the future, and if you can see the future, then you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me. You'd be on your private island someplace. So unless you can see the future, you need to empower all your people. And I can't tell you how many times that some junior guy who was labeled as maybe overly quiet, or, I mean, he would not have been the person if we had a leadership development program, we wouldn't have picked this person for the program. Right. And they came up with some of the best ideas. Sure. So, look, everyone can be a leader, everyone is a leader, and trying to pick the winners and the losers is not the way to go. You want to create an environment where everyone is a winner.
If you had to pick one characteristic, what would it be?
Courage.
Courage.
Yeah, because to be a good leader, you need the courage to resist your natural instincts, to give orders, to be in charge, to create a hierarchy and climb to the top of it for social dominance. And you need to actively let yourself be vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense that the grade that you're going to give me is going to depend upon what someone else does in the middle of the night on the far side of the world that I don't have any direct control over.
Right. And
so the courage to do that, I guess, is what I struggled with. It was the hardest thing about what I did on the submarine. It wasn't the fact that my guys didn't want to take control. It wasn't even the fact that we had to figure out how to give decision-making authority to people. The fact was, whenever anything went wrong, my instinct was to go back and say, oh, well, that was a nice experiment. That was fun while it lasted. Right. Now we're going to go back to the way we all know it should be. I'm going to be giving the orders around here, not you. And I would go in my stateroom, Max. I would shut the door. And when I calmed down, I would just go back out and we'd try it again. So it's that courage, that sort of that internal steel that just says, look, we're just doing it like this. Sure. Now, I was forced into it, by the way, but I hope most people just choose to do it that way.
And, well, David, along those lines, you describe that as being a leader in kind of an environment where you describe how you empowered everybody from your XO down to the regular members of your crew. What would you say is the most important skill for a leader? You talked about courage being an important characteristic. What about skills?
Well, the reason I call it leader is because we have leader, follower. What we have now is leader-follower. It's so ingrained we don't even consider it as an assumption. It's like, well, of course there's leaders and there's followers. We don't even question it. Okay, so leader means we don't turn people into followers. This is what's funny for me. Okay, we create this environment where we turn people into followers. We tell them to do what they're told, follow their orders, and then we say, oh, but not like that. Because what happens is we sap the energy, the passion, the proactivity out of them. We suck it out of them, and then we say, oh, but I want you to have more ownership. I want you to take more initiative. Say, well, you just sucked it all out of me. Okay, so now we're going to have an empowerment program to compensate for the fact that I just sucked it all out of you. So look, the better way to do it is just never suck it out of people. Just let the natural proactivity of people come out to begin with. So look, you have to be very thoughtful, and you have to be very patient, and you have to listen. So I'm not sure if there's any one thing, but so what happened on the submarine was we started doing this, and things went really well. We started winning all these awards. We got all these great, we deployed early when no one thought we could. We got the top score on these inspections. We went from the worst retention to the best, and everyone celebrated that. And that's good. That's achievement. I'm not taking away from achievement. That's what the Navy recognized. But the problem is 10 years later, now what we see is the real power, which is 10 of the officers have been selected to command their own submarine. The submarine won the award for the best chief's quarters for 7 years in a row. I'm gone. I was long gone. So some of these leader things, you can create well-running organizations and do good two different ways. You can either have it be dependent on you giving all the instructions, and then when you leave, things fall apart, or you can embed the goodness in your people. But that takes a lot of patience, because you're going to have to go back over and over and over and over again. And then the organization you're with may or may not recognize, they may not measure what happens on a 10-year basis. They may not know that, hey, Max, something that you started 10 years ago is coming to fruition now.
Well, then let me ask you this, because it seems to me that that's the best indicator of a leadership style working. When it becomes a legacy, when it becomes something that outlives your turn driving the boat, is that an indicator of when a leadership style is working really well?
Yeah, you and I are in the same camp, but that's not normal. What we normally think is, oh, so-and-so just left their company, so-and-so just left the submarine, and things fall apart, right? And we go, oh, look how, they must have been great. Look how well things were running when fill in the blank was here. We really miss him or her. Weren't they a great leader? And this is where I part company. They were a great achiever, because while they were there, they were running things, and they achieved great things. And achievement is wonderful, but leadership is what you said. It goes beyond achievement. It's embedding the ability, the capacity for achievement in your people and in the organization when you're not there, when you're gone, when you're on vacation, you're retired, you got killed off, whatever it happened to be, right? Okay, so, but we're sort of wed to this idea that, achievement and leadership are the same, and they're not, in my book. I think we need a new definition.
In the book, you spoke rather candidly about Sled Dog.
Yeah.
And the time that a change that you made didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes to learning from failure. What did you learn from? What did you necessarily learn from failures when you were the commander of the Santa Fe? Because you had a number of instances like that.
Well, first off, I wanted the reader to know that this wasn't a straight line path. That we tried things, some of them worked, some of them didn't work. So one of the things that didn't work was giving people a lot of lectures. So for example, Sled Dog, the story was we drove across the Pacific Ocean from Hawaii to San Diego, and he immediately went absent without leave, AWOL. And Sled Dog was a quartermaster, so he was one of the chart guys. Well, this is a big deal, and we, a lot of guys wanted to put them on report, essentially write a arrest warrant on them, and so I asked the question, if I had been sled dog, describe for me my life in the previous 36 hours. Just what did I go through? Because I knew this guy. I mean, this is 2 months into it. Everyone in summer, I slept like 30 feet from the guy, like down and over one. And they said, well, you were standing watch, port and starboard. In other words, you were 6 on and 6 off. And oh, by the way, just because of the way that the entering port time worked and the brief for entering port and our all hands training, you didn't get any sleep. So the no sleep for 24 hours? Yeah, well, more like 30 hours, but yes, you didn't have any sleep. So I asked the next question, why was he port and starboard? Well, because there's only 3 guys qualified on that watch, and the third guy is a supervisor, and he was standing a watch with supervisors. Okay, well, what was their watch rotation? Oh, well, they were 1 and 8. In other words, stand 6 hours watch every 2 days.
Right.
So while he was 1 and 8, his guy was port and starboard. Well, I had been lecturing the crew on taking care of your people, on having an equitable workforce, on getting your guys qualified. I've been talking about that. And I was really, really, really upset. I was upset partly with myself because when I remembered, I said, well, geez, I've been in the control room all these times. And yeah, I do remember sled dog being there. And I should have put it all together before we had this event. So I said, well, where is he now? Well, he went to the barracks. We were in San Diego. If you really wanted to, and it's like, why didn't he go to Mexico, right? I went to the barracks. So I go to the barracks myself, and I said, I talked to the barracks manager, and I said, hey, do you have a sled dog? Oh, yeah, he signed in an hour ago under his real name. And so I went up to his room, and we had a conversation, and I said, look, I'm not going to excuse what you did, but I'm somewhat sympathetic, and as long as you're back on the submarine tomorrow at 7 o'clock, when liberty expires with everybody else, we're done with this event. Never going to hear about it again. Oh. And it worked. He came back the next day, but not everyone was happy with this because they thought I'd set an example where it was okay to go UA, and that I was really letting the military discipline slip. But we never had another guy go UA, ever. And I got my leadership team together, and usually I was asked them, hey, we need, how would you, what would you do here? But I realized that all my lecturing on taking care of the crew was not working. So I said, look, here's the rule. No watch rotation for any watch station can be any better than the one below it. So if the bottom guy on the ship is port and starboard, the top watch team on the ship is going to be port and starboard.
So you learned a little bit about how to make things even and make things equitable for everyone.
Yeah, but more than that, what I learned was if you want people to change, don't give them lectures. Just create a mechanism. And actually, what I say is instead of thinking our way to new action, we're going to act our way to new thinking. So what happens is now everyone's standing the same. Now, oh, by the way, they were not happy, but they found ways to get those. Now, a month later, we had 4 guys qualified, and so everyone is first 3 section and then 4 section. So you came on my submarine after 6 months after this event with Sled Dog, and you'd say, because people said this to me, wow, you have you guys are really committed to taking care of your crew, and it's so equitable, and it's really a sort of we're all in it together sort of culture. And I would say, no, you know what? We don't have a culture of all that. What we have is a rule that no watch rotation can be better than the one below it.
Right.
Now, sure, eventually that became embedded in their thinking. But the key is you got to act first, and the thinking follows.
Right. Now, you've had a chance to think about leadership. Who do you consider your heroes and your influences?
I would say, first of all, George Washington, for example, because, again, I think there's achievement and there's leadership, and the brilliance of General Washington was not only was he a tremendous achiever, as we all know, but by stepping down after 2 terms and by setting the habits of the presidency in such a way that there were balanced power between the Congress and the executive and the Supreme Court, that he created a legacy which has allowed the country to thrive over the subsequent 220 years.
Right.
So the legacy of a leader, to be a great leader, is you need to be able to point to that legacy. A guy I think like Eisenhower. My leaders are typically sort of quieter behind the scenes. George Marshall, Chief of Staff of the Army during World War II, and then the Marshall Plan. Right. So George Marshall wasn't out there rebuilding Europe, but the Marshall Plan enabled Martin Luther King, for example, but not Martin Luther King, the orator, not Martin Luther King, the "I Have a Dream" speech. That was tremendous accomplishment, but Martin Luther King, the inspiration for the Civil Rights Bill, which then was passed and has now helped so many people. So those are some of my leaders.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your insight and your perspectives on leadership. We appreciate your support and want to wish you the best of luck on your future endeavors. I'm Capt, and you've been watching the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5 Question Series.